This is the CreaseCast.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 127? 126 of the CreaseCast. On that note of terrible news, just wanted to wish or give my well wishes to your family who are living in Kamloops. Also to all the Twitter followers that follow or listen to our podcast who live in Kamloops. There's actually quite a big contingent of people that actually live in Kamloops. I know Sean Warren of the Area 51 podcast network is a resident of Kamloops, and there's just, if you don't know, there was I'd be shocked if you didn't know, because it's all I knew was talking about was the massive heat wave that occupied BC and the Pacific Northwest over the Sunday or Saturday to Tuesday. And right after that, there was a giant stretch of forest fires that are still ongoing right now. The city or the township that broke the record for the hottest temperature recorded in Canada burnt down 2 days later. Not even 2 days later, like the day after, thanks to a forest fire started by lightning strikes that basically plagued all of BC and up into Alberta as well. So the people, and by people I mean Lachlan and myself, all two peoples, wishing the best, and fingers crossed that everything works out for everyone in the interior of BC who are, facing some very dire circumstances as their homes are threatened by forest fires. That's fucking horrendous. Just a lot of really grim news recently when it just away from sports in general, and then you get into the sports like you're saying, like the Blackhawks thing, that's miserable too. There's a lot of bad going around, and usually around this time you get the draft stuff, you get the July 1st off season, but that's delayed because of course COVID, which still exists and still a problem. And you have we probably won't even talk about this, but the Tokyo Olympics, NHL is still debating whether or not they're going to send players, and people in Japan aren't even vaccinated from COVID.
Those are different Olympics, but you're right idea, but different Olympics.
Are they?
No, well, I don't think they're sending them to the Summer Games. That seems a little bit.
Isn't that the winter ones coming up?
No, so the winter ones are in Beijing. They're in China. They're going to be the 2022 games. Those are in February. The Tokyo Games, which were supposed to be last year, the Summer Games. But they got moved to this month next month. I forget. And yeah, that's different. That's different. They're not going to be playing hockey in the summer games.
Okay,
Not yet.
I thought that was so weird because
they only did that. Yeah, they only did that once. They only played hockey at the Summer Olympics once in Belgium. That's the only time that's happened. That's actually true, by the way.
It's kind of breaking my brain because for some reason I just assumed because there's so much Olympics talk right now with the whole no one vaccinated in Japan from COVID. At the same time, congruently, that's all this talk in the NHL about whether they're going to break their promise to the players about getting players into the Olympics. So I assumed they're going to Tokyo. It just shows how little I'm actually keeping up with Olympic talk or whatever. But yeah. A lot of crappy news in the world. If you follow me on Twitter, I had some personal, very crappy news come out. My cat, almost 21 years, passed away on Thursday, or God, I don't even know. Time's kind of a blur right now.
This week,
just this week, just a couple of days ago, I literally got home. I was listening to a podcast, which I don't want to spoil, but the episode contents were basically about a character in the podcast dealing with the loss of their pet. And literally 2 hours later, I was at the emergency hospital putting down my companion, which was devastating. Still going through that, which sucks. But I wanted to also bring it up because there is some kind of humor in it, because this is the second time now where I've been staring down vacation time and had to put down a pet on the day before going on vacation.
Jesus.
Yeah, literally God. 2 years ago, I was going to go on a vacation with a bunch of friends to Maui, And literally the day our vacation started, we had to put down on my other cat. And now here I am 2 years later facing like the Canada Day break. My work said, don't bother coming in Friday. We're going to take it off. So you have a 4-day vacation, just, whatever. And sure enough, that's how it started. So nothing but crappy news. We're going to change that, though, tonight with our episode because there's actually some hockey news going around we're talking about, which is pretty wild because, as I said, it's like July now. We're used to having a lot of news, but it's been fairly quiet for the most part.
Happy free agency, everyone. The Canucks didn't sign anybody. Well, they did it. They finally did it. It took them 8 tries, but they finally didn't sign someone on July 1st.
Could you imagine if Jim Benning actually tried and like another GM was like, Jim, free agency day is on the 28th. It's not on the 1st this year. And he was like, oh.
Or maybe he just like wakes up that morning, like he just is like, he knows that it's not free agency day, but he's like, I don't know why. But for some reason, I feel this urge to like call and offer someone way too much money. Like it's just like you just hear him on the phone, like talking to his Uber Eats guy. He's like, you know what? You did such a great job delivering me my Tim Hortons today that I'm going to give you $1.5 million with a $800,000 signing bonus.
Here's a $600,000 tip, and you're going to be exclusively my Uber Eats driver. And the guy's
for the
like,
next,
okay,
4-year deal.
And then the guy says, but my car, my car doesn't really work, and this is mostly a part-time gig. And Jim goes, oh, shit. I guess I'm not going to get as much value out of you for the next couple of years.
that would be See, I feel like that. There we go. That's more in line.
There's the Jim we know and love.
Yeah.
But firstly, I need to apologize because
yes, you do.
I, of course, jinxed another team in this year's playoffs. I tried to do a bit of a reverse jinx, though, because I was kind of hoping that by guessing that the Habs would win win the series in 5 games, I was hoping that they would, I don't know, like, lose the first game and then just like reverse sweep their way to the end, and that would be the ultimate jinx. But instead, it appears to be more of just an outright jinx, where they are now down 2 games in the series.
Yeah. See, what you tried to do here is you tried a little too hard to play 5D chess.
I did.
Whereas, so like the last time, I forget if we talked about this the last episode that we did, which was a week ago now, because we've been off for 1 week, for various reasons. But but I think we talked about how you and I you sent me the thing that the Knights are going to win because you knew you'd been jinxing teams the whole way through. Yeah. And sure enough, the Canadiens won because you predicted the Knights
of me.
Would win. Right,
yes.
You did that.
I did that. Me, myself, not Philip Denault, but me.
Yes, you tried to help the Canadiens win by purposely jinxing the Knights, and it worked. Yes. This time, what you did is you almost tried to one-up yourself and tried to be like, you tried to go, they don't know that we know that they know that we know kind of thing, right? To the point where you just ended up playing yourself a little bit. So you tried a little bit too hard. You put a little bit too much.
This entire playoffs, I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it didn't really matter. So, apologies to any Habs fans. Apologies to my buddy Matty, who is like his whole family is like hardcore Habs fans, and usually we don't really talk hockey, but because like his Habs are doing like so good, he's just like really hyped up, and I totally jinxed him for him. So whoops, my buddy dude.
Well.
My bad, dude. But yeah, like the most depressing thing that came out of them losing game 2 was Rick Dollywell's tweet saying that Burrows said to the room after their loss and said, "Hey guys, don't worry. We were up 2-0 in our series against the Bruins, and they managed to come back, so it's possible." Oh, like that's.
I didn't need that reminder. I didn't. Yeah, that's.
I mean, that's good coaching. That's like, oh shit, like I'm using my own failure and using that to rally my current team to say like to not give up hope because you can do it. Like that's that was so hard to read because I just like, he said it and he is probably being very sincere and trying to rally the boys, but he's like dying inside.
On the inside. It hurts inside. Because I think there was a 31 Thoughts episode a year or two ago where Elliot talked about the fact that he's pretty sure that no team has ever taken like a cup final loss harder than the 2011 Canucks. Like he thinks that took, like he said that out of any like finalists, that took they took the hardest toll on themselves. It took the hardest toll on each other from losing that game. Like that really messed them up for the long term.
Well, it's kind of like, I mean, this team won't obviously be the same. I mean, they might. We'll get into this a bit later, but like the Nashville Predators, right? They arguably should have beaten the Penguins in their series in 2017. Like they had unreal goaltending, they had depth scoring through the Yang, and then they just like could not seal it. And not even 4 years later, they're staring down the barrel of a full-on rebuild because they've got to start from scratch, basically. So they're going to be one of those teams where they're like, man, we were so close, but they didn't get to a Game 7. So, like, of course, the Canucks are just like,
and they also really weren't supposed to be there necessarily. Like they were kind of a Cinderella team in a different sort of way, like not in the way the Canadiens are, like a very different style sort of way.
Sure.
Whereas the Canucks were supposed to win. They were supposed to win the cup out of every team in the league. They were one
of the most elite teams the salary cap era has ever seen, and we won't get into it. It's just gonna get.
No, we don't need this today. We don't need this negativity today.
Yeah, let's not do that. But Burrows, props to the coaching.
They get Ducharme back for Game 3.
They get Ducharme back. I mean,
which again might not help you. It might help you. It might not.
It might accelerate the loss.
You never know. I mean, so with the Canadiens, like the first game they got outplayed. And I saw a lot of people being like, well, this is clearly going to be a dud of a series, sound the alarm, what have you. And I just remember thinking like, this happened against Vegas. They did not look good in the first game against the Knights. I'm not ready to panic here on them yet.
Right.
And then the second game happened and they were a lot better. Like they were clearly the better team for long stretches of time. Outshot the Lightning to hell.
Yeah.
And then they still came up short.
Yeah.
They still lost. And I think that one was a bit more of now I'm a little worried. Not just because it's now they're down to nothing, but just because of the fact that they lost while playing arguably their best game. It just, they couldn't get it done regardless because the Lightning are just so good. And I mean, as soon as the Blake Coleman goal went in with 0.3 seconds left in the second period, the Habs have been playing so well.
The tiebreaker, that was a tough one to give up. And then towards the end, when you have Joel Edmondson basically setting up just completely gifting him a goal, those are tough ones. You have to wonder if that mistake happening because of the way they lost their lead in the first place. It's just a deflating moment because the team's playing well. You start making mistakes because you're trying your best regardless, and it's still not doing the trick. I still have hope that they can maybe win while at home. They've done very well at home this playoffs, and I mean this playoffs has proven they can show up against the toughest teams. They beat Vegas, man. That's the hardest test of all. And they could have easily just folded, but they didn't. They found a way to make it happen. And I have this feeling they can still make it happen. It's obviously a tough road. They need to win these two home games. Cause once you lose a game at home, that's when it's GG. You've probably lost here. But
especially because then you're heading back to Tampa for what would be a cup clinching game. In a crowd that did not get to see their team win the cup last year, so they're going to be there. They're going to be cheering for it like it's the first one, like it's
As if the bubble one
in a
didn't
sellout
happen.
crowd after playing in front of it's going to be 3,000, I think, tonight in Montreal. When
Something
this
like
game starts
that.
in about 15 minutes.
Which we can also get into for the whole Dominique Ducharme thing. The guy just had COVID, or like he might not have had COVID, but he went on the quarantine
He tested
for COVID.
positive.
Yeah, so probably had it. Maybe he was asymptomatic or whatever. But he has a quote today where he says he's disappointed in the government for not allowing more fans in the arena. And it's like, are you stupid?
Actually, okay. Here's my thought process here. I'm kind of in agreement to an extent here. To the point of there must be enough people who are fully vaccinated to put say, I don't know, like 5,000 in the building rather than 3,000, or even like what if you said like 50% capacity? And what if you said like what if the agreement is okay, you can fill it to like halfway, but it can only be people who are fully vaccinated. They have to show their card at the door. They have to do the heat check, the temperature check. They have to do everything before they can go inside. I don't know why that wouldn't be a fine like that. I don't know. I kind of feel like that is being a little bit like overly
the goofy
stringent.
Thing too is they show the outside of the arena where it's completely packed. So it's
Bingo.
Like, what's the difference here?
Exactly.
Because they're both equally as dangerous then.
Yeah,
but obviously,
anything,
indoors in a confined space, it's more dangerous because the chance of spreading. But
even if anything, that outside is more dangerous because everyone is standing right next to each other in a throng. Whereas if you say fill up half your arena, everyone is spaced out. It might be indoors, but everyone is spaced out by a decent amount of seats. So that seems a little bit safer than literally having them all just having a mosh pit right out in front of the arena. I kind of agree with Ducharme to an extent, or like with the people who have been saying this is ridiculous to that degree, because I'm not saying they should fill the building up, sellout crowd like they're doing in Tampa. That's a little nuts. Well, but at the very least, if everyone's vaccinated, why not? Why not let them in?
I don't know if you're following the Euro World Cup, but they had said something like this match between Wales and Scotland or something in Glasgow had like 20,000 people in the arena or something like that, and 3,000 people tested positive for COVID like immediately after. So it's like you could still have like we all know, like you can still be vaccinated with both your doses and you could still like carry it, right?
Yep.
So I can see where they're coming from, but I'm just of the sense like if you're Dominique Ducharme, like don't be stoking the anti-mask like flames by being like this is bad of the government. Like
guy famous for leaving his mask down at all times during the game, or at least far too often.
What quote did I see? It was like Dominique Ducharme wears his mask, gets a chin strap, and he's really the guy to say that he disagrees with the COVID protocols. Like big surprise. So like from that perspective, I'm just like, dude, like at this point, after just coming off of like COVID quarantine, you should probably just be like quiet and say whatever the government says that keeps us safe is probably the best decision, though I would have loved to see fans in the building. But it's or
you leave it to somebody who has a good record of keeping their mask on. You just leave it to anyone else on your team.
Let just Burrows or Luke Richardson handle it. Anybody else. Yeah. Anybody else but him. But
let Burrows come in and be like, we need more fans in the building to win deterred. Like that's all you. That's all it takes. That's all you. That's all it takes in that case. The one thing I will say that I have been I think we have gotten out of this series. I think there have been the two games have been fantastic hockey. Like I think there were stretches in the second period that were quite good. Of game two, but I will say the goaltending has been very good. Like Vasilevsky has been incredible. Yeah. I've seen so many people saying that Vasilevsky needs to be getting more recognition for the Conn Smythe, and I'm like, isn't he the only one? Like, isn't he the only one getting? Who else is?
Point.
I have not seen. Yeah, I've seen. Yeah, outside of Braden Point, I have not seen anyone else really getting much recognition for a potential playoff MVP other than Vasilevsky for the Lightning and Carey Price for the Habs.
Yeah.
Literally Price has only been the goals against maybe not showing super highly in his favor at the time. And the shots but he's been doing well on the, like, all of the goals that have gone in past him so far in this series, correct me if I'm wrong here, have been kind of like failings on his own defense or just getting completely screened in front of the net. Like that Joel Edmondson goal, you can't fault him on because he thinks that Edmondson's skating around the net. Like there was zero communication on that play. Edmondson throws it back to a person that's not already there. And you can clearly see Carey Price isn't expecting him to do that. He's expecting him to carry it around the net. Yeah, so that means that the communication was just missing. And there have been multiple plays like that where it's been getting I think in that first game, multiple goals went in off of who was it in front of the net? It might have been Edmondson as well. It was somebody who just kept getting it kept hitting him and then deflecting into the net or right to a Lightning player. I think the goaltending has been solid overall. Yeah,
that's usually how it works, right? The goaltending's fine, but it's it's just little things like that. Like you get a shot from the point that redirects off of two players and it's in the net. That's just playoff bounces, right? So they need a game tonight. It starts in about 10 minutes. We're recording on Friday at 4:50 p.m. They kind of need a game where the bounces go their way. They need to, I don't know. They need to somehow break Vasilevsky, right? They desperately need. If they go down 3-0,
more than one goal. They need to score more than one goal on Andrei Vasilevsky because you're not going to win. And as good as Carey Price is, you're not going to win any game against the Lightning 1-0. You gotta score a couple more.
So then, other pieces of news. One of the few Canucks related pieces of news is Nate Schmidt is in the news again because Rick Dolly was reporting that all his sources are saying that the worst kept secret in the league right now is that Nate Schmidt wants out of Vancouver. He's pretty much been done for a while, I guess, because obviously these rumors started back in maybe when the season was over. And it was there's going to be people that are demanding trades, and everyone freaked out. And was
everyone
this is media nonsense.
And you know what? Yeah, they're saying, you see, because they said it. And I don't know why we have to. We shouldn't. I mean, I don't know why I'm rehashing this because I don't think anyone's done this recently. But it's so funny whenever someone's like, you see, they said they like it here. They're not leaving. It's you can say anything. In what time in NHL history has any player ever been like, yeah, I hate it here, trade me right now?
But I think I said this. I think I said this to you. I think we discussed this before in episode once or maybe on an episode, but I was like, the only time any player has ever been honest and been get me the fuck out was fucking Roberto Luongo.
How dare
he was my
Robert,
trade
how dare you?
Bobby Luongo. When he was my contract sucks, and that's the closest anyone ever got to being
and even then,
I want out.
He didn't say he hated it.
He just said his contract sucks, and that's why he hasn't been traded. And it's people are oh, JT Miller doesn't want to trade. He said he likes it here. That's who said he liked it here? Ryan Kessler, and that was in the midst of demanding a trade out of the city. People can say whatever the fuck they want in an interview and lie. It doesn't matter.
I will say this: the players that I do have, I have the utmost respect for a player who's willing to go on publicly say, yeah, I don't like it here. I really need to move on.
Just completely tank his own value.
I have the respect at least for the player putting the public pressure on in terms of just why lie about it in that sense? Especially if they're it's not that I don't like the fans or I don't like my teammates or something. It's just I am not happy here. This is not the best fit for me. I have time for players that are willing to be candid about that kind of stuff, but they're not going to be. That's just not how they are. That's especially hockey players are not going to do that. You're more likely to see that in another sport, not hockey. Just because of the way the culture is designed. But Schmidt apparently wants out, or at least that seems how it's going. Again, he hasn't said it publicly, but it seems sure like it. And I remember thinking at the beginning of the season, I don't know I think this might have been one of like the last episodes prior to you joining the show, where I talked about how I was so worried, like hearing about Nate Schmidt when they traded for him. I remember hearing all of these people from the Knights and from the Capitals, like his past stops, saying how this guy is like the sweetest person ever. He's super funny. He's extremely charismatic.
Great media.
Yeah, you're going to absolutely love him, not just for his play, but for his personality. And I remember thinking, oh, that sounds awesome. I'm so worried to see if the Canucks break that, if they break him.
It's possible.
They broke him. They broke Nate Schmidt. Like, this guy doesn't seem like he doesn't seem like a problematic kind of guy. What did you do to him? Like,
that's how crappy the Canucks were this season, man. Like, this is what happens when you put Nate Schmidt on a pair with Alex Edler and you say, okay, carry him around because he can't skate anymore, and try to score. If you can't, oh well. That's a big task to go from the other shitty thing too is he's going from like a legitimate cup contender to a team that maybe like he literally said he wasn't expecting a trade because of his no move clause. He wasn't anticipating moving, and then to suddenly go from a cup contender to a team that is, kind of finding their footing, and then the season goes the way it does.
A lot better, and at the time seemed at least a little bit better based on what they had at the time, or right around the time, because I think that trade happened on the day of free agency, unless I'm mistaken, because that would have been the Pietrangelo tied in with the Pietrangelo signing. So like at the time, at least up until like the day before he was traded, the Canucks still had Jacob Markstrom, Tyler Toffoli. They still had all Troy Stetcher. They still had all those guys. So they seemed at least a little bit better. And then you get traded. All of those players are now gone. Mm-hmm. And then the team, whilst playing in front of no fans in a pandemic era hockey league, it's not fun. New city, you can't go out and explore really because you're under serious quarantine at all times.
And if you do, you'll have the Larshiders after you for breaking protocol. Going after your wife on Twitter and Instagram and saying you're a loser for not sitting indoors for 4 fucking months. So that's a tough season. Pandemic.
And then the outbreak hits you midway through the season, so you get sick. Which again, I think we talked about before how that has to really sour you on a team. Like even if you liked everything about the team, even if you didn't mind losing games, like it must be very hard for players to play for a team to go back to a city where they experience that sort of situation. Sure. Like that's gotta be, I don't want to say like scarring, but that has to be kind of like I'm sure it affects your mental
in a way, right? Yeah, like it has to.
It has to be really hard on you to knowing that happened while you were playing on this team, and especially and then you add on all of the extra stuff.
Yeah.
For Nate Schmidt, literally this couldn't have been a worse way to be introduced to the Canucks if this is a normal season, like a normal 82 game season, no pandemic, everything is fine and normal, or as normal as life can be nowadays. I don't think we're having this conversation right now. I think this isn't even a thing. I think this has a lot to do with the fact that literally he came to the team under the worst possible scenario. And then it got worse when the product on the ice actually began. When the puck actually dropped, it got even worse. I think it was just an all around just wrong place at the wrong time kind of thing. And I don't blame him for wanting out, but I also at the same time would like to see the Canucks give it another go. What do you like? Okay, I'll ask you. Like, do you think that they should trade? Like, do you think it's worth it to trade him now? Do you cut your losses here, or do you give it another go?
Here's the thing: looking ahead to this offseason, like there's no cap to spare, right? So you're probably doing a deal where it's like money in, money out. So you're basically exchanging Schmidt's deal, which is pretty rough. Like, it's got the no move clause. It's like $5.9875 million a year or something for the next 5 years. Like,
fair value for what he was putting up, for the numbers he was putting up before.
Yeah, on a good team, that's a great value defenseman. Like,
Yeah.
I would personally try and stick it out and try and make it work so he sticks around, because if you lose Schmidt, you're down to Quinn Hughes, and that's it.
And yeah, and
That's
maybe
literally
Jack Rathbone. Maybe Jack Rathbone.
But like, we're talking like,
but that's a hope
we're
and a
talking
prayer.
about like NHL defenseman. Like, Rathbone's going to come in and he's probably going to get,
He'll be
pretty
fine,
decent
but
minutes, but like, he's going to be a
game
rookie.
breaker.
Yeah, you're not putting him out there to, take on first lines all the time. Like, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But if you lose Schmidt and like, you might not be able to retain Hamonic because you don't have the money, like, you're looking
cooked.
at a bunch of AHL defensemen again. And then Alex Edler on a $3 million deal. Like, can you even afford that? Like, it's just a whole lot of, if you lose Schmidt, which is, I mean, they didn't give anything up to get him. So like, it's not really, it's a wash, but the value as a player, like, that is tough to find someone with a similar contract who brings what Schmidt brings to a good team when, things are like normalized.
Yeah. I think with Schmidt, I honestly think, and this is such a hard decision here because of the fact that, like, yes, the Canucks could really, I think it would be jumping the gun for them to trade Nate Schmidt now. At the same time, they already have so much money invested in guys that haven't worked out for the Canucks that I also see the logic in going, we're not going to waste time this go around. We're just going to make the trade before it's too late, before we completely depreciate this guy's tradability. And
they would still be selling low on him, but like, relatively speaking, this isn't a case of
they'd sell him for something. They'd be selling him for something.
Like, which they've had trouble doing with all of their defensemen. Ben Hutton walked for nothing. Troy Stetcher walked for nothing. Chris Tanev walked for nothing. Dan Hamhuis walked for nothing. And then the crappy guys they bought.
You have players on the roster now who you can't even get rid of, like Berchi and Eriksson. Like,
so I could see from their perspective where they're like, oh God, we can't have another situation where another asset that we acquired dies on the vine and we're just stuck with 5 years of a guy who doesn't want to be here and we can't move and we're just stuck.
I mean, they're already there with Tyler Myers, I think, to an extent.
Oh yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
I don't think they want to trade thim, but I think they're of the mindset that he helps them and that they want him around. But I think if they tried to trade him, they would get absolutely no offer. They would get nothing for him except for maybe a 7th round pick from someone desperate.
Oh man, if they
which would be great. That'd be huge.
A 7th round pick for Myers, like, that is such
that's an A+ trade. But there's no one out there who wants it. There's absolutely no one out there who wants that contract. Nate Schmidt, people will want Nate Schmidt.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is the thing, and this is kind of the risk that I think the Canucks might need to run here. And I kind of said this on Twitter yesterday, where I almost think that they kind of this is kind of a test the investment by investing more kind of situation, where I almost think that that they should do basically the opposite. And instead of trading Nate Schmidt, you go out and specifically find a player, a defenseman, to partner with him. You go out and either trade or sign a player specifically meant to play as his defensive partner. Or if you want him playing, say, with Quinn Hughes on that first pairing, you go and sign a player to take over his spot on the second pairing, or trade for a player on the second to put on the second pairing.
Yeah.
That almost, I feel, would be a better way of going about this now than just straight up moving him. Because again, I think if you give him 82 games, with an actual proper partner, because even if Alex Edler was healthy, I don't know, or Alex Edler hadn't taken such a step back, I don't think necessarily that was a good pairing anyway. I think you need somebody who's I think Schmidt is almost a guy you want playing with more of a, I hate to bring him up because this isn't his side anyway, but like a Chris Tanev kind of type guy who's not supposed to score as much and is just meant to be a little bit more of a defensively structured sound guy. Or you just need somebody like that playing alongside him on the left, or like someone like Hughes, where it's just a star pairing it's just two very good defensemen who understand each other
just
and
load
can play
up
at that
and
level.
Then hope for the best.
Yeah, because you're absolutely not going to find a Nate Schmidt comparable in any trade coming back, any returns for him, and that's what you need. Because otherwise, your defense, like you mentioned, their defense is completely cooked. You might luck out. You might luck out and get some great defending from Jack Rathbone, but that's not going to help you. That's not going to help you because you have no one to play with him.
Yeah, you cannot bank on like an AHL kid or like a rookie to carry or to boost your second pair to be like an NHL quality line. Like as much as I'm high on Jack Rathbone, like that's just not how NHL GMs operate. And they operate in the mindset of Jim Benning said it. We have enough puck moving defensemen. We need heavy big players that can shut things down. Like, so if they lose Schmidt, he's going to probably say, oh, well, we still have enough puck moving defensemen because we have Guillaume Brisebois and Oli Uela. Like that's his logic. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he'll be like, I need to spend money on an Eric Goodbranson type again, which is probably what he's looking for anyway. Because that's the thing. Like to your whole idea of like you look in free agency and you try to maximize Schmidt's value by getting a better piece to pair up with him. Mm-hmm. The track record of them actually finding defensemen themselves and getting them is atrocious. Because let's not forget, for those that don't know, Nate Schmidt wasn't a guy that the Canucks were like, yeah, we're going to try and get this guy from the Vegas Golden Knights because we think he's going to be a good player for us. The Vegas Golden Knights wanted a better player in Alex Pietrangelo, so they said, hey, Vancouver Canucks and Vancouver Canucks only, for a third rounder in 2 years, why don't we give you Nate Schmidt?
We're going to give you a player
basically
for free.
For free. And the Canucks were like, oh, okay.
That's a great deal.
Because I think it was, I can't remember who, but some GM went on the record, or not on the record, but anonymously went to like Elliot Friedman, who's like, they were pissed. Yeah, if they'd been offered that, they would have been all over it, and they were upset that to find out that Schmidt was on the market and they weren't made aware. So people must remember the best defenseman that they picked up in free agency right now was dropped on their lap, and the other one was picked up in college and they let him go to Detroit for nothing. So I don't trust them to pick up someone to be that complimentary piece with Schmidt. The complimentary piece is Hughes, and you just let him fly, basically. But then you still need two pairs.
And then you still need because you can't go into the season again with Rathbone, another year older of Alex Edler, Myers, and Hamonic. Yeah, you can't go in. That defense will be just as unhelpful.
It won't get better.
It'll only get if Rathbone does all right, it'll only slightly get better. It will get slightly better, but not enough to actually make the difference between a playoff team and a team and a non-playoff team. You'll still be a non-playoff team with that group. Their problem is almost the fact that they've kind of have not used. You're right. They almost haven't ever looked for complementary pieces for defensemen, which is kind of nuts when you think about it.
Bad at it. They're very bad at it.
But it's also kind of weird because, like, with JT Miller, for example, that was a trade they made not only because they saw the opportunity to jump on a deal from a cap strap Lightning team. There's also there was already instantly the idea of they're going to play with Pettersson and Besser. That was already kind of they're going to play. We have a specific kind of spot in mind for them to play. And they even like some of the deals that haven't worked out, like Eriksson. We talked about the last time how they signed him specifically to play with the Sedins. They seem to look for complementary pieces in the forwards. They've seemed to look for those guys. But with the defensemen, they've always kind of been like we're just going to throw things at the wall and see what sticks. Kind of mentality with their blue line, which has not been good.
It's a very antiquated way of looking at the defense too, where they're like, you have
every defenseman
puck
works with
movers.
every other one.
Yeah, you have a puck mover and you have a big guy. And all they've ever looked for are big guys. And they've all been terrible. Eric Goodbranson, awful. Nikita Trampkin was whatever. And they were desperate to try and get him back after pissing him off and him not wanting to play. Now you got Myers. They overpaid out the ass because they were like, this is our guy. This is the model.
They
big
overpaid
boy
for a guy
defenseman.
to do and specifically to play a role that he is not built to play. Like, he's big, but he's not a heavy hitting enforcer.
He's just
dude.
big. That's it.
He's big and he wants to score goals. He wants to score. Put him on the fourth line. Do it. Put him on the fourth line. That's where he belongs. He might be a decent winger.
Yeah. Anyways, we're getting really deep into the whole the Canucks.
Yeah. I don't think bottom line is I don't think that there's a deal to be had for Nate Schmidt that is worth your time for right now for what you're going to get, especially after the way that they really depreciated his value. I think the best thing they can do is try and find another player specifically meant to either play with Schmidt, or if you want to put him with Hughes and you think that's the pairing, then you find somebody who can, say, nurture Jack Rathbone to play the second pairing under
maybe
Schmidt.
Duncan Keith.
Maybe Duncan Keith. That's a great transition. That's a great transition into the next topic, I guess.
Yes, because it won't happen. Like, for those that don't know, Duncan Keith apparently spoke to Blackhawks management, was completely open to working with his no move clauses to move to the Pacific Northwest to be closer to his son as his career kind of winds down. Rick Dhaliwal reported, I believe today, saying everyone believes that Duncan Keith is going to move to Edmonton. They're trying to work out a trade with the Blackhawks where Caleb Jones will be the return or something like that. I loved all the fear that kind of broke out amongst Canucks Twitter when it was just for the Pacific Northwest is where Duncan Keith wants to go, and everyone just oh no, Jim, you can't do this, Jim.
Don't you do it. Don't you do it. Literally, you know what's really funny is, I think the funniest thing actually, so I saw everybody yelling about, oh my God, Jim, including myself kind of being like, don't you dare do this. But what's extra funny, what made it extra funny is that I actually saw tweets from people in Calgary and Edmonton also being I saw one person from Calgary being yeah, this has Jim Tree Living written all over it. And then I saw an Oilers person being oh my God, Ken, I swear to God. Ken Holland, don't you dare. Literally every single fan base is oh, this is so what my GM would do.
And because Canadian hockey fans are smart. They recognize that Duncan Keith is completely washed. He
used to be great. He used to be a very good defenseman. He used to be a Norris-winning defenseman, caliber defenseman.
Fantastic, undersized defenseman.
He is not that anymore.
He's not that anymore. He's still got some pep in his step. He still plays very physical, but the reaction timing is off. Yeah.
The physicality took its toll, and now he can't play.
It's the Kessler problem, right? Kessler was playing very physical for a long time, but his body obviously can't keep up. Jonathan Toews was in the news saying basically the exact same thing. His body finally broke down because he couldn't keep up with the physical toll of playing such arduous seasons over and over. So he's at that process, and he's still got 2 years left on his was it $7 or $8 million a year?
Okay. I guess we should kind of talk. I guess the best way to approach this is okay, there's no way Duncan Keith is going. If Duncan Keith is going to Edmonton, there's no way he's going for full salary. It would almost certainly have to be 50% retained. Especially if you're giving up a Caleb Jones or something. So at at $3 million, $4 million, is there even a shred of reason why that could work and that's worth your time as a team?
I do not know. I do not know what Ken Holland values. His presser in the offseason was very interesting. After they got swept by the Jets, he was just this stuff is going to happen. Sometimes you just take a lot of kicks at the can. You hope everyone takes a step. You try and build out your team with veterans and players that know how to win. But you take a lot of kicks at the can. Detroit, he always mentioned Detroit 1,000 times, but he's like, it took us a ton of times to get it right. I don't know if Duncan Keith is the solution there, but
I also feel like that Detroit team was a lot closer.
Yes.
You think the guy who built the team would know that, hey, that team is a lot closer and more well constructed than this Oilers team is. I have to imagine that Mike Vernon was a better goaltender than Mike Smith at that point. And Chris Osgood, for all of Chris Osgood's question marks, is at least a little bit more reliable than Mikko Koskinen. And that's just the goaltending, and that's just the goalies. Like, I could go on. Like, that's so weird. It's such a weird way.
It's a weird one. Like, that's
such a weird. It's such a weird way to like. It's such a weird reasoning to take out of your experience as like a guy who won 4 Stanley Cups with the Red Wings. That's the lesson you got out of that.
Lesson learned was that it just takes a bunch of kicks of the can. That's it.
That would be like the Oilers. That'd be like the 80s Oilers going like, if there's one thing I learned from being the Oilers in the 1980s, it's that you gotta have you just gotta be able to have like you gotta play in the WHA first. You gotta have WHA experience. That's what some teams just do.
And tenacity. Yeah. It's not the generational
Lee
talent.
Fogelin really moved the needle for us in those playoffs. It's like, you also had Wayne Gretzky. Like, like that kind of mentality would be so weird. Or just like, it's also kind of like, you know what a really good example of this is? It's when, I don't know if you remember, but after the Penguins won their second cup in a row, the Jim Rutherford Penguins, like, they beat the Sharks the first year, they beat the Predators the second year.
Yeah.
That offseason, one of their big moves was trading for Ryan Reeves. And part of the reasoning behind that was that Jim Rutherford felt the team wasn't tough enough for the playoffs, that they had gotten to, and they had some injury issues. Yeah. And it was kind of like, again, you just won. Your team won on its speed game, game of being like one of the fastest
high-end
teams.
Skill.
And high talented offense and just incredibly quick foot speed from top to bottom. But your lesson that you took out of that was somehow you need to get slower. Why? Why is that the reasoning? Like, it was very much and that's kind of the mentality that has here with the Oilers, where it's like,
don't make any sense. Like, the fact that like it's coming out that like Dollywell's reporting, like Edmonton's in on him. It's like they just signed Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to this massive extension. What is it? 5.125 million AAV until 2028, 2029, which it's like, less than his old deal.
Talent, like, sure, like, fine.
Sure, but they just committed more cap again to the same, like, more of the same, basically, right? Like, they're like,
basically,
like, Ken Holland's takeaway was, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins isn't the problem, but I do need to keep him around at a very high price, and I'm going to keep on working around rounding out my team with very little cap space again.
Yeah.
And then you hear, they're after Duncan Keith, and it's like, Duncan Keith costs too much. Like, you can't afford it, and you've committed now $5 million of your cap for the next 8 years to a third line player by the end of that term. Like, I mean, he might be a bit better by then, but like, right now, as it stands, like you're betting on a 28-year-old or whatever to just like hold up. Or how old is he? I think he's 20.
He's got to be in his late 30s by now.
Nugent-Hopkins.
Oh, Nugent-Hopkins. He's 29, I believe. He's 29, 28.
Is he really? Okay, so then, no, that can't be right. I feel like he's got to be like younger than that.
No, because remember, he got drafted in 2011, I believe, is the year.
So he's like 26 or something like that. But still,
he's 28. He's 28.
Okay, so you're betting on him being a $5 million player for you when he's 36. Like, that deal is going to age terribly. And if you don't win the cup, then that's just awful. So
I guess
why are you going after Keith?
And we can,
It's
I guess
terrible.
I guess this is a good way to transition into the Nugent-Hopkins thing, because we did, is kind of like, I'm almost like with the Nugent-Hopkins contract, it is very, yes, you're right. In the long run, this will hurt a lot. But honestly, like at this, like I do kind of get with like, even with like Duncan Keith, I'm kind of like, oh my God, you just need bodies. You just need to get into the playoffs and win a damn round for a change. Like, I'm just kind of like, but
Which
I don't
is
know
a
if
big
Duncan
ask,
Keith's
apparently.
that. Apparently, that's a huge ask. But again, it's a lot of money to put away for a guy who's going to be under contract for a while. With Nugent-Hopkins, and he took a bit of a step back this year, I believe, or at least like he did in, I think his points per game, he took a bit of a, like, I think it took a bit of a dip.
I think the issue was that he spent like 500 of his minutes or something like that playing with McDavid and Draisaitl and still only had like 25 points on the year. And we know how well those two produced, like him and Draisaitl.
It should be almost a gimme that you're getting at least a point, that you're getting more points. Yeah.
So there's like some like asterisk, like, okay, well, if he's spending most of his time with the two best forwards in the NHL and that's all he could produce, like it's not going to get better as he gets older and into his 30s.
Yeah.
So that's a bit sus.
I mean, it's manageable. Like, here's the thing: it's a small, and it's cheap enough that if it starts to go bad, you could still trade him for. You could probably still get decent return on him for another if you needed to move him to another team. And again, right now, if there is one thing the Oilers do need, it's people who can reliably put the puck in the net for 30 points a year. Because frankly, they don't have enough of that.
Right.
Like. Even in a shortened year, the fact that he scored 35, I think, is his point totals this year. That's still a lot more than the rest of the Oilers, I think, were scoring. Yeah. So sure, you honestly you just need guys who can reliably get you points, a good amount of points every year. Why not? But I mean, yeah, you gotta be thinking about the fact that, hey, we don't have a lot of money left for a team that is as depleted scoring wise as we are right now.
Yeah.
Please help. I don't know if this one's good. This one might come back to haunt them a little bit.
Well, like, I mean, yeah, it's the Oilers. It'll be chaos in a couple of years anyway when the deal inevitably fails.
I mean, you know what's wild is wild. This is a good one. Is Joel Eriksson Ek just got his extension today, also 8 years. It's
a wonderful deal for them.
Which is what's funny about it is he's going to be making, I believe, about 12.5 million more per year, or 125,000 more than. Right, and RNH is 12.9 million more is I think that's illegal. I don't think I can sign that guy for that. But
what do you take the Bay?
He's 8 years, but the big difference here is that he's 24. He's only 24. He's got a lot. He's got a lot of. He's
already a Selke candidate. Like that's. Oh man, like they've just committed themselves to like such a bargain contract. This is one of those ones where people were
jealous.
like, "Oh,
this is a jealousy. This is jealous."
The Nathan McKinnon deal, where you're like, "Oh man, if Nathan McKinnon takes another step, this deal's going to be really great." This deal's already great because you're getting like a literal Selke candidate at less dollar value than Ryan Nugent-Hopkins or whatever it is, barely, maybe a bit like slightly more. Like that is like what you want to pay for the long term. And he's still so young. He'll only be 32 when the deal's over. You're getting him through his entire prime.
Yep. And
like
then,
that's sick.
That's huge. That's a great signing. Like that's a great move for your team. And it doesn't even, and it's not going to make a huge dent in what you have for other players. Like Kirill Kaprizov also needs to get an extension. That's supposed to be coming up.
If he doesn't leave to Russia.
If he's not busy fishing, I think that was the thing.
Yeah.
Like when he won the Calder, he was like fishing or something.
Yeah, he's like fishing in Siberia, so like they couldn't.
That's so funny, which is great. Awesome. I like that. That makes me like him even more. It's just that idea of like he was too busy. He was too busy to accept his Rookie of the Year award.
Yeah. He isn't because he's leaving. He's going back to the KHL.
I don't buy that for a second. I think that's a bargaining thing. I don't think.
I hope it happens just out of pure comedy. I'm all team chaos, man.
I almost feel like that's chaos. Like, is that chaos or is that just bad? Like, is that just all around bad? Like, I think it'd be so bad if the rookie of the year up and left after year one. How bad that would be for the league if they couldn't get a guy who's supposed to be part of the future of the sport, who literally finally made the Minnesota Wild not boring. They couldn't get him to come back.
There's people like Kovalchuk left all the time when they were like the most dynamic
left after
scorers.
12 years. He played 12 years before that, and
yeah,
that doesn't count. That's not the same thing. Like,
you can leave whenever you want.
Datsuk left after 10 or 12 years.
And
he didn't let go. He didn't have 1 year where he won the cup with the Red Wings and then just never came back.
That would be pretty sweet. Like, that's the alpha move. You just win a cup. You win like the Conn Smythe, and then you just never play again in the NHL.
You're like, yeah, I've done all I needed to.
Yeah.
See ya.
I accomplished my goals. I am going home. Like that would rule so hard. But anyway, I wanted on the note of Selke trophies, the PWHA released like all their ballots for the awarding. And one of the ballots for the Selke I thought was so funny because he had two players on there that no one else did on the ballots.
Okay.
He had three players actually that were not on any other ballots, and then one player that was on two ballots. So he basically went completely off the board for his entire picks. And so are you ready for his votes 1 through 4? Okay. Number 1, JG Pajot for Selke. Second place, Connor Brown of the Ottawa Senators, which showed up on 4 other ballots. Radek Faksa of the Dallas Stars, who showed up on no others. Logan Couture, who showed up on no others. Yes.
Whoa. Wait,
and then fourth place was Luke Glendening of the Detroit Red Wings, who also showed up on no others. Yeah. Absolutely wild.
Sorry. Okay, so recapping here. So first guy, Islanders. Just so I can get the teams down here.
Islanders, JG Pajot. Pajot, sorry. Connor Brown of the Ottawa Senators.
Islanders, Senators, Stars, Sharks, Red Wings. For the Selke. Selke.
Didn't have Mark Stone, Ryan O'Reilly, Barkov, Patrice Bergeron.
Didn't have anyone in the top 5.
Any of them.
I think Pajot got voted.
Insane. He's the only person that plays JG Pajot.
Like, I think is even nuttier is that I can't even make the argument like just on that list. The reason I wanted to recap on the team specifically was because I couldn't even place it based on like, oh, well, maybe they were just, they didn't watch they were an American writer who didn't watch a lot of Canadian teams. There was a Senators player in the top 2. Number 2, maybe they just watched a lot of the Pacific Division. Nope, there's one Pacific Division guy there.
You guess? That is, I'll let you try to guess.
Oh, is it somebody who we can meme on here? Oh, geez. Is it a regular meme person? Oh, dear.
He is an American. Try and guess what city he reports out of.
Okay, so this is a beat writer. This is a beat reporter.
I think so. Paper writer, I'm pretty sure.
So this isn't like a national guy. Okay.
Correct. It's not like the Athletic or anything.
Oh, it's not the Athletic. Okay.
Just what city do you think he's based out of?
Okay, city.
Because it'll blow your mind even more.
Got it. I'm gonna say something like Philadelphia.
Oh, right state, actually.
Pittsburgh. No, okay, that tracks. That totally tracks. That totally tracks that somebody in Pittsburgh would have just a galaxy brain. A galaxy brain ballot. That totally scans.
Pierre McGuire had Brad Marchand as his number 1 Selke pick.
I mean, that's wrong, but I can at least see some logic on that one. At least a little bit of logic on that one, but not a lot. That's still not a great pick, especially when he plays with Bergeron.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'm not even gonna get into it. Like
that's
it's just really
that's
funny.
wild. Pittsburgh
Yeah.
is the Edmonton of the
Yeah.
states when it comes to weird hockey takes from
straight
media
up.
people. They're not like national like Toronto, but they always have like just somebody always
opinions.
is going nuts. Like somebody who like. What was it? I think I saw somebody complaining that Crosby didn't get any like first place votes. For
there was a certain writer who
this is a Canadian
was going
writer,
on some rants, several rants about the I mean, what would you even call it? What was he saying? He was like, it's like the most like invalidated voting imaginable. There's no like. There's no like it's lost all credibility for Lady Byng voting, and it's like
go outside. Like
truly
this is not that big a deal. This is really not that big a deal.
Oh, Tampa Bay scored.
Yeah. It's like I will like I do think the awards are fun to look at just based on like, okay, who is just it's you know what it is? You know what? It's almost like the awards don't matter in the grand scheme of things, except for when it comes to like, contract negotiations for players, because if they win, it helps. Mm-hmm. It helps them. But I will say, I think it's a very good measuring stick of who is, actually doing their homework and keeping up on what's going on in the rest of the league, and who is the most out to lunch and who maybe is the most outdated on why maybe you shouldn't. And like the people who it's like, okay, maybe we need to put you. Maybe you have an expiry date on when you should be allowed to keep maybe voting for these.
Maybe there should be term limits on something like this.
Yeah. So because it does change every year who gets to vote for what, but like depending on where you are in like the system. If you're again, for anyone listening to this who's not necessarily a big media nerd like we are, this might be boring. But like every year, the list does change because only 100 people vote every year. It changes. But the thing is, depending on what city you work in and who you cover and what company you work for, you are more likely to get votes more regularly. So like, for example, I think Sarah Sivian generally votes every year because she's the only regular Hurricanes beat writer that doesn't work for a team. So whereas say like in Vancouver, it changed every year. There's like so many people, and there's only even though like the actual list of professional hockey people in the Professional Hockey Writers Association is kind of small. In Vancouver, only maybe 2 or 3 get votes every year, depending on the year. Like I think I don't think Harman Dial got a vote this year, but Drancer did.
No, Drance is always voting.
Wagner
Patrick Johnson's always voting.
Wagner voted last year, but he didn't this year. Wasn't part of it this year. So it does it changes. It changes every single year.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are some people who vote more often than others, just based on say like working for a national media company versus being a beat reporter. That get in every single year, or like being like a legacy person or something. And you'll see them sometimes go and vote in just the weirdest way. Or like say last year when like 5 people gave Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl first and second on the Hart Trophy, completely forgetting how the Hart Trophy works.
Yeah, spread them out a bit, make one first, the other fourth. That makes it a bit better.
Yeah.
But first and second, it's kind of like you're missing the point.
Were there any people that got less votes for things? Kirill Kaprizov won almost unanimously won the Calder. There was one guy who I believe from what I can see on the list, just looking at the long list, there's only one person who voted for Jason Robertson first. Everyone else had him about second.
The only other one
and then McDavid got unanimous. Is there somebody who didn't get enough votes that you think deserve more for something? Be it
to be honest, I haven't gone through them that much to know. Mm-hmm. I basically scan for like the one like the lot because it's all like in a chart where they have everything on a line, and I look for the one that has the most like obscure names on it in a row. so that I can be like, wow, this guy went off the board quite considerably. But otherwise, I don't know. I could care less about the voting. It doesn't really matter. It's just very funny when you see the weird ones that don't make any sense. I appreciate those.
Yeah. So for me, I will say that I am stunned at the lack of votes for Nils Höglander. Like
Really?
in terms of, I don't think he got enough. I don't think he got enough. Maybe I'm a homer, but
That's a pretty homer take. I think
he was their second best player the entire year.
Sure, but like if you looked at like the list of different rookies, fourth is.
I think he should have gotten fourth. I think he deserved fourth. He only got sixth. It's
about where he should have been, though. If you really think about it,
man. Like I don't know.
They were
I can't seem to find the list that has the actual. The vote totals on it, but I don't think he got us. I think he only got I think there was one guy who like right ahead of him who got more votes that I was just kind of like, what? Like I was just kind of looking at him like, there's no way that guy had a better year than he did. Like I'm trying to think who it was. There was one guy who had like a point more than him. Finished like just ahead of him.
Well, it's more than just points, like, right? Like I mean,
but like depending on how many you're. But like no, not in like points in like the league, but in points in the voting. Within voting, like he had one more vote point total than he did. I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was. It's gonna take me a second to figure out who it was. It was somebody on I think it was someone on the Devils. It was like Ty Smith or something on the Devils.
Oh well, Ty Smith had like a really good year though. Like he had like 30 points or something like that. He had like a lot on like a very shitty team, and that's the thing is like
Tim Stützle also got a lot less votes than I think he should have. Like I think there were a couple guys where I was kind of like, I think it was kind of been a little higher.
Stützle has the same thing where I'm like,
Vanacek was one. Shesterkin and Vanacek were the two ones that like got ahead. Like as much as I love my goalies, like I was kind of like they only were okay. They were just okay. Like I don't think they were better than Stützle or Höglander was. I think you're placing more to their overall success. Like this
is where I'll actually be the one defending goalies and being like, you're the one out to lunch here, because Stützle and Höglander were actually quite fun to watch. They're very entertaining players. On bad teams, they stood out as guys who were constantly trying to win for their team, and by that metric, it's like, they should be Calder candidates or whatever, guys that finish second or third because of what they're bringing to their team. But when you look at what like the actual on ice impact and stuff like that, like you can't deny that the rookie Vitek Vanacek, who spent all last year in the AHL, coming in as a starter and winning enough of his starts to get Washington into the playoffs, that's huge. Alex Nedeljkovic playing out of his mind for Carolina, getting
definitely belonged in that top three. Like
Shesterkin, same thing. Sure. Shesterkin's a bit like, I'll like admit, like it's a bit weird because they didn't actually make the playoffs, but like he was still playing pretty good for the most part.
But also Georgiev got a bunch of starts, so I was kind of like, that feels weird that Shesterkin got so many votes, despite I don't think he actually played all that many games.
Yeah, it's a bit for that. Like it's a bit odd. Like there should almost be like a second vote, like where it's like the rookie of the the rookie skater of the year versus the rookie goalie of the year. You know what I mean? Like
yeah. At the end, it's only like and again, I'm not even like faulting like the people who voted for those people, like those guys. I'm just kind of like, Like
you're surprised that they're not higher.
I'm surprised that they fell that Höglander and Stützle, and there might even be a couple more in there that if I went and looked at again, I was more looking just for Höglander at the time, and I remember seeing Stützle underneath him and being like, that's also weird. Yeah, just kind of like, I felt like they still, like, it felt like they should have gotten a few more. Like, they should have gotten a few more than they did, but maybe that's just maybe just not seeing enough of them, or not seeing more of the two people who got some of the people who got more votes than they did. So, okay. Like, again, it's not a hill I'm willing to die on or anything. I was just surprised that they got so few between the two of them, and that they fell out of like the top five even.
Fair enough. The last thing we wanted to get into, a bit of news that actually dropped yesterday, I believe, which is a trade. the first trade in
Yeah.
since April, I think, when the trade deadline happened, which is unreal. That feels like a lifetime ago. It's only been 3 months, but that feels like so long ago.
It feels, back in March of 2020 was the trade deadline, I believe.
Yeah.
But Tyler Toffoli, he's gonna be something for this team.
He's gonna be something for this team.
I gotta stop bringing that up. God, we might have to instill. You know what we might have to do after this season? Like after this season officially ends, we might have to have basically a Toffoli jar where it's just like, okay, every time we mention him, we're throwing $1 in to stop doing it because it's too sad. Let's stop. Like we might have to set a harsh limit on saying Tyler Toffoli, referencing him.
We'll have a second one
year.
Too when it's like we have to create like a Nate Schmidt jar because Nate Schmidt is like scoring at a point per game pace. Oh God.
The Toffoli jar will be kind of like metaphorical. It'll be for like a couple guys, but like it'll be called the Toffoli jar.
Yeah, fair.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down for the studio decorations for sure.
But as the resident Nashville Predators guy, I kind of know a thing or two. This is great value for the Kings to acquire because Viktor Arvidsson scores goals and he is going to immediately land in their top 6 and be a great producer. The Kings are like going to be sleeper picks as like a contender. Like they are so deep in their prospect pool. They're going to be able to put in a lot of work at this expansion draft if they really want to and do what Jim Benning couldn't do, which is turn things around in a hurry. Whereas Jim Benning relied on his pro scouting to try and turn it around in a hurry and failed. The Kings relied on acquiring draft picks, selling off what they could, and building through the draft. They built through the draft and doing it quickly.
Very quickly.
We talked about them a lot on this show because I'm always impressed by like the depth that they've acquired through their drafts and through trades. It's disgusting.
And then there's me who just hates. I hate that the Kings. I hated the Kings when they won the cup. Like they were like those 3 years that they were so good. Like I absolutely just loathe them. Like maybe like to the point where I was cheering for Chicago. I caught myself cheering for Chicago on multiple occasions because I hated the Kings so much.
That's how dark things.
That's how dark things have become. So I kind of hate that they're getting so good again. This quickly, but they're a good looking group. They're a huge dark horse to win because the Pacific Division is absolute trash for the most part. Like you thought the Canadian division was bad. Oh, my friend, you have not seen you've not seen the Sharks in a while. You haven't seen the Ducks in a while. You haven't really seen the Kings recently because they weren't good. They weren't very good. Like they had their moments where they were at least fun.
They started pretty good, but then kind of fell off a bit.
But then, absolutely fell off. No fault to although their goaltending was incredible. Cal Peterson was very good. Yeah. And then literally you're looking at a division where you have Calgary, where you have the Canucks, the Flames who missed the playoffs, the Oilers who got swept in the first round, playing alongside an expansion team in Seattle, and
might clean up,
which is so weird. Again,
a lot better than they expect.
Yeah. Which always there is the potential that they are much better than you expect them to be out of the gate. Like the other team that's still in the division, going to be back in your division next year, Vegas. 3 of those teams have to make the playoffs, so someone is going to do it. It might just be LA. They might be the team that does it. I mean, they still have Kopitar, who's very good. They have Dustin Brown playing a little too high in the lineup, but still decent and had a bit of a resurgence. And then you have guys like Quentin Byfield and Adrian Kempe, Jared Anderson-Dolan, Carl Gronstrom. You have a whole bunch of guys who are another year older, who are going to be another year better. And then to complement the guys who have been around who are still just very, very good, like Kopitar, right? Like they're a very good team. Like I could see them being I could
I could
easily
see it
them
going
being
two
a
ways.
dark horse playoff team.
I could see them either being a team that, you know, is young. It's like going to be like the Senators this season, where like they were completely out of it, but they made it hell for the competing teams down the stretch and won something like 11 of their final like 15 games or something like that.
A tremendous spoiler. Like did an incredible job at being a spoiler.
They could very well be the spoiler team.
Some teams roll over. And the Kings seem very much more like a Senators type team, where they won't do that. They will absolutely they will have fun taking points away from better teams and for teams that should be beating them, kind of thing.
Agreed.
I think this is a good, to an extent, like this is a good trade for the Predators, because they need to rebuild. I think I don't know about you, but one of my biggest worries with the Predators was that they were going to look at that first round, making the playoffs, winning 2 games in the first round, and see it as, we're fine.
We're still there.
Keep doing this. We're still right there.
And I bet the players think that too, based on some of their social media reactions to the Arvidsson trade. Like Forsberg and Johansson both came out and were just kind of like, this sucks. So I'm sure they're not ready. I'm sure they're of the mindset like, you know, we can still do it. Like we won 2 games in the bubble or in the playoffs. We're still there. But the reality is they have so much money tied up in players that aren't effective anymore. They need to rebuild. Rene is not going to be a goaltender for them. Saros is going to be okay. He's probably going to be the reason why they're contending in playoffs, but they're not going to ever be anything more than just like a first round washout, which is something they don't want to be.
They're in the position where hopefully they looked at the Kings, the team that they're trading Arvidsson to, and said, hey, look at how well they've done. Coming back and rebuilding through the draft. This is what we need to to take this method, this approach. So hopefully they see the fact that they could be, if they play their cards right, they could be the Kings just 3-4 years down the road. Yeah, that's the best way to look at it if you're Nashville.
Yeah, for sure. Like this should be. I think. From what I read on like their subreddit and on Twitter, a lot of their fans are kind of like, look, this playoff run was like a mistake. Like the team needs to be in full rebuild mode, as much as we hate to say it, like they're just not going to be good anymore. So I think their fan base is basically like the Canucks, where the Canucks were like, the team needs to rebuild like significantly. They can't just like spin wheels and hope for the best. Like they need to actually invest in a rebuild. And I think Nashville fans, like they're kind of obnoxious as hell, but they get it. They understand that they need to be rebuilding right now. 2 picks for 1 player and not retaining any of the salary, that's a big win for them. They've got so much money tied up in their forward group. Like if you can free up $5 million or whatever Arvidsson's worth, like that's a significant trade. If
they use those draft picks well, this is a trade that I think will be one of those, this worked out for both teams kind of trade. Like this is which is like shouldn't be such a weird thing to say, but in hockey, like I think sometimes so many of the time we have the problem of teams. And I think this is like a lot of general managers try too hard to say like fleece each other or try and win trades instead of trying to find deals that actually work for both sides.
Right.
Because there is something to the idea of nobody ever wants to give anything up to get something huge in return kind of thing, which is why that happens a lot. So it's good to see. It's always good when teams find trades that maybe aren't going to be the most popular from a personnel standpoint, but are good for the long term and are actually 2 teams acknowledging what they are and going and are trying to find ways to make them to both better themselves in the right way, in the right direction.
I agree. Well, on that note, I think that's probably like a good place to cap off this episode. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this episode. We hope you enjoy your weekend. It looks like it's going to be not 800 degrees outside, so that's pretty nice. As we stated at the beginning of the episode, all the best to those that are in the interior right now. We really hope like we get some rain going in BC, which is baffling to say, in the middle of summer to say that you wish for rain, but
Here
praying for rain for all you guys.
Again, it's been very wild following all of this from California, where it's actually been kind of like unseasonably kind of chilly. Like it hasn't been cold, but it's been like windy. It's been it's not been like super boiling hot every single day. Right. So it's kind of shocking seeing all of that stuff going on in Canada and having kind of like avoided it. So hopefully, everyone is doing well over there. Hopefully for that, everyone's doing well. And hopefully this gives you a bit of a distraction from that for a couple hours and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, guys, if you want some more distractions, you can, of course, follow our podcast on all of your favorite podcast streaming services. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, all that stuff. We also have our YouTube channel as well. If you want to stare at our beautiful faces on YouTube. I mean, I haven't shaved, but it's all right. I need a haircut for that too.
I did finally. It took me long enough. And then if you want even more stuff, you can check out our Patreon for only $5 a month. You get bonus episodes and other cool stuff from time to time over at patreon.com/CreaseCast. As well.
When things cool down in BC a bit more, we'll probably get on Patreon recording a bit more. Like right now in my current office setup, if I am running my computer for longer than 2 hours, it becomes 45 degrees in this room. So it's I cannot commit to running any serious computer shit. Right now I'm in the process of finishing up my my Utica Comets season review, and I have to do it at nighttime with the window open and the fan blasting me in the face. And it is so uncomfortable. So we're going to bring you more content. We promise you guys. Until then, though, you can follow me on Twitter at Cody Sievertson or my website, cometsharvest.com. Lachlan, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitch sometimes at Lach and the Crease. And you can check my website, lachandthecrease.com, where I post articles from time to time. Hopefully a few more come in before the Cup finals are done. And and who knows? Maybe this might even be the last one. Well, this might be the last one before the finals are over. So
it might be done this weekend. If they lose tonight.
By the time we get to our Tuesday recording next week, it might be over. Yeah. Although Montreal just scored, so it's 2-1 now. It might not. Who knows? Could change.
Well, till then, folks, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. Go Habs, go Canada. Have yourself a good weekend, guys. Bye.
Bye, guys.